afterwards, I got a notification from the Department of Justice telling me that this was going to happen, when it had already happened. This woman abused children.
I am back after a few days in Boise and a long day of travel yesterday. And it's good to be back, I guess, dealing with some of the things we're going to be talking about, maybe not. Yesterday, Donald Trump was justifiably dragged for some comments he made about the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. It's a Democrat hoax. It's a hoax. Which is troubling for a number of different reasons. First and foremost, the fact that yesterday was the day that many of Jeffrey Epstein's victims gathered in front of the United States Capitol for a press conference urging Congress to release the files, to pass legislation demanding that the DOJ release the documents they have that do indeed include Donald Trump's name. And while this was happening, he declared it a hoax once again. He also sent fighter jets to buzz over multiple jets, causing disruption, I guess, as an FU to these women who were sexually abused, raped, tortured by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, who's now receiving special treatment, preferred treatment, royal treatment from Donald Trump in the Bureau of Prisons. It also is troubling for the fact that in 2024, just months ago, Donald Trump, when asked if he's going to declassify the Jeffrey Epstein files, he didn't answer with a, what? Why would I do that? That's a hoax. That's not what he said. Let's revisit what he said before it became a hoax.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would.
Yeah, I would. There's some conditions in there, of course, always with Donald Trump. But yeah, he would. Notice, no talk of a hoax. Apparently, it wasn't a hoax until there was a very real threat of those files being released and us finding out exactly what his involvement was with the horror show that was conducted by Jeffrey Epstein, likely Donald Trump, possibly Donald Trump, and others. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, I don't care who's in the files. If they took part in the systematic abuse of children, burn them all to the ground. Every single one of them. There's all kinds of talk about Bill Clinton in there. Wouldn't surprise me. Burn him to the ground. Bill Gates, for all of his philanthropy, burn him to the ground. Bury him under the prison. And most certainly, if Donald Trump is in there as well, he should go down. This should be all of our priority, is protecting children, should it not? This is what took place. I'm going to get to the flyover, and I'm going to get to some clips of these victims and their horrific stories. But before I do, I want you to know what Donald Trump was saying while the press conference was taking place. Watch this.
Mr. President, right now, there have been survivors of Jeffrey Epstein speaking at a press conference on Capitol Hill. They're calling for these case files, these documents to be released. And Thomas Massey, who is sponsoring a discharge of physicians who get the House to vote on the release of those documents, says he doesn't believe you're implicated in these files, but many of your friends and donors may be. And he says that's why the Justice Department is redacting them and slow walking the release. Is the Justice Department protecting any friends or donors, sir?
So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. It reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, Thousands of pages of documents have been given, but it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president. Even if you look at D.C. right now, D.C., it's a totally safe zone. It's called a safe zone. That's a term. It's a term of art. It's a safe zone because it's very safe. You can walk down the street now and nothing's going to happen. No crime, no murders, no nothing. Because we had a lot of problems with certain places, and we still do. All run by Democrats, or for the most part, run by Democrats. So what they're trying to do with the Epstein hoax is get people to talk about that instead of speaking about the tremendous success like ending 7 wars. I ended 7 wars. Nobody's going to talk about because they're going to talk about the Epstein, whatever. Sir, I understand that we were subpoenaed to give files, and I understand we've given thousands of pages of files. And I know that no matter what you do, it's going to keep going. And I think it's enough because I think we should talk about the greatness of our country and the success that we're having. I think we're probably having, according to what I read, even from 2 people in this room, we're having the most successful 8 months of any president ever. And that's what I want to talk about. That's what we should be talking about, not the Epstein hoax.
When you make a decision on Ukraine, Mr. President?
What happened to, absolutely. What happened was he was campaigning then and needed to appeal to the base that's been fired up about the Jeffrey Epstein files for years and years and years at his behest because it benefited him politically. Not the case anymore. Now they've granted him what he wanted, which is power, unchecked power, and he's not going to do it. He's not going to release it. Republicans now are covering for a child sex predator. They're lying in order to protect the pedophile president, many think. Notice I say many think. I'm covering myself from defamation lawsuits. We don't know. I don't know. But I can make a guess based on the behavior that we're witnessing. Why are they doing everything in their power to ensure that these files don't become public after promising time and time again that they were going to? It raises serious questions that we all need to have answered. Now, I don't know if what you just witnessed from Donald Trump was spoken while the press conference was happening or just minutes after. But this is what they're covering for. This is who they are protecting. Listen to this woman tell her story in this brief clip that she was on Jeffrey Epstein Island, held captive at 10 years old, being brutalized on a daily basis, multiple times a day. This is what they're running interference for in the Republican Party.
I have spent the last 17 years in my own prison for what she, Jeffrey, and all the co-conspirators did to me. I was raped repeatedly. I was raped 3 times a day sometimes. And I was not the only girl on that island. There was a constant stream of girls being raped over and over and over again. And yes, Ghislaine must die in prison because I've been in hell and back for the last 17 years.
And 27 for me.
I was 10 years old when Liz Stein was being trafficked. I was 10. That is how long the sex trafficking ring.
That's why I say, burn them to the ground. This is the thing that Donald Trump does not want people to find out about. And it's not just he doesn't want his reputation tarnished because he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. By Jeffrey Epstein's own account, best friends for 15 years. It's not that. It's the crimes involved. It's not the pubic hair signature cartoon where here's to another year of wonderful secrets, Jeffrey. It's not that. It's the actual crimes that will be uncovered. Here's the moment of the flyover, the disruption, almost as an FU to these ladies who are bravely out there speaking their truth, speaking the truth to power, literally and metaphorically, as they stand in front of the Capitol building of these United States. Watch this.
I was horrified when I found out not only had Ghislaine Maxwell been transferred to what's called a low security. It's really is like a holiday camp, and then afterwards I got a notification from the Department of Justice telling me that this was going to happen, when it had already happened. This woman abused children. I was abused by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell for over 10 years. Ghislaine Maxwell was present for some of my abuse at the hand of Jeffrey Epstein. She was present, she was complicit, she was enabling, and it is appalling and disgusting. And it's one of my worst nightmares that she not only be transferred, but at the possibility that's very much going around that she might be pardoned. This is not okay, guys. This is not okay.
And I just want to add that I think it sends a very dangerous message to our country, to the young people in our country, that someone that we all know is aware of these crimes could be given a pass.
And just for the last survivor who just spoke, she said that Epstein would brag about her relationship with Donald Trump. Could she please elaborate about that?
Shante.
To the microphone. Yeah, I did say that. My first trip to the Palm Beach residence, I drove there from the airport with Ghislaine Maxwell, and Jeffrey and Ghislaine were always very boastful about their friends, their
Look, we are in a very disgusting place as a country where this is our president. That this is the thing that they are trying to hide, to cover up for. Where our mighty righteous man of God, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is certainly doing what Jesus would do, right? The man, Jesus, who said that it's better for a millstone to be tied around the neck of someone and have them thrown into the bottom of the sea than for them to harm a child. How are you lining up your deeply held religious convictions, Mike Johnson, against that?
The legal authority, and I want to talk about these kids, is that there are people who are bringing literal terrorists who are bringing deadly drugs into our country, and the President of the United States ran on a promise of stopping this poison from coming into our country. Another question?
For many years, Republicans have been critical of, we don't want to be the policeman of the world. We don't want the U.S. military to serve as the police force of the globe. And like with just about everything else that comes out of Republicans' mouths, it's lies and hypocrisy that only serves in the moment to be a cudgel against Democrats and Democratic policies. And I say that because today we're talking about what just took place, the United States attacking a civilian vessel that they allege was a drug trafficking boat. And listen, if you're going to be watching me into the near future here, you're going to be seeing a lot more international headlines from international sources, because the media in the United States is just not getting it done. They're doing the thing where they write the headline, boat attacked, drug cartel attacked, comma, Trump says. So you get the crux of the headline that's really selling the narrative that Donald Trump and this administration wants you to hold, not, and then at the end, the Trump says really is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Here's from the BBC, U.S. strike on quote unquote Venezuela drug boat. What do we know, and was it legal? And then I got two paragraphs for you. A strike carried out by U.S. forces on a boat in the Caribbean Sea, which the White House says killed 11 drug traffickers, which the White House, you lead with that. which the White House claims. They say, but we don't know. They're providing no evidence. There obviously was not any due process. We'll get into all of that. I'm getting ahead of myself here. May have violated international human rights and maritime law, legal experts have told BBC Verify. President Donald Trump announced on Tuesday that U.S. forces destroyed a vessel which he said had departed from Venezuela. He said the boat was operated by the Tren de Aragua cartel and was carrying drugs bound for the United States. Drug trafficking is a crime. It's not good, but it's not an act of war. It is not a justification, a predicate for military action. And how do we treat criminals under the Constitution of the United States? We provide them due process. We haul them before a jury and a judge with lawyers to get to the bottom of it through our standard system of jurisprudence. That's what you do. But they're labeling these terrorists. Listen, they're not even alleging that this boat was manned by the military of Venezuela, representatives of the government of Venezuela. They're saying this was just a boat filled with criminals. And so I guess what's the next step? If you have a car filled with criminals in the United States, can you offer a drone strike and destroy the car and everyone in it, killing them extrajudiciously, extra constitutionally, outside of the bounds of the rule of law? Is that where we are now? It is where they want to be. This story isn't just an international one, and we're going to talk about that because they're labeling these people terrorists as the justification for murdering them. And just what was it, last week I talked about how they want to label the Democratic Party a domestic extremist organization, aka terrorist organization. And if this is how they're legally able to treat terrorists, alleged terrorists, what's next for American citizens that they deem terrorists? Here's a look at this Fox News tweet. Watch, the U.S. military destroyed a Venezuelan drug boat in international waters with 11 Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists aboard, comma, the Trump admin says, comma. Like, again, see, that's what I'm talking about. That's the heavy lifting that comma, and then Donald Trump says. How many lies have we racked up from Donald Trump and the administration over the years? So why are we to believe this? Why would we believe anything Donald Trump has to say about anything when we know him to be a serial, record-setting liar? This was the video. We'll just play the video over my shoulder here that they released. They declassified and released it. There's all kinds of consternation. The Venezuelan government says they can't find any wreckage. They don't believe this happened. There's been accusations that this is AI. You can't believe the Venezuelan government. You can't believe the United States government. So who knows what's true? We do know that J.D. Vance was directly asked about what legal authority they had to strike this vessel, killing human beings, nearly a dozen human beings, and his answer left a lot to be desired.
On the Venezuela vessel strike, what legal authority were you guys working under, and will there be an after report on the strike?
Well, I'm sure there's going to be an after report. I mean, the legal authority, and I want to talk about these kids, is that there are people who are bringing literal terrorists who are bringing deadly drugs into our country, and the President of the United States ran on a promise of stopping this poison from coming into our country. Another question?
So apparently we now live in the movie The Minority Report. They were doing this, they were going to do this, they were headed to this place, they weren't there yet. We're outside of the jurisdiction of the United States, unless, of course, they want to be the world's police force. What crime was committed? What law of the United States was broken on U.S. soil? There was none. There was none. Notice he also didn't give what legal authority. The legal authority is that there are literal terrorists bringing deadly drugs into our country, and POTUS ran on a promise of stopping that. This is the guy, by the way, who wants the Nobel Peace Prize, who's now extrajudiciously killing international citizens of a foreign country in international waters. Yeah. Listen, Rand Paul, who apparently found some courage within the dark depths of the soul, or the place where his soul used to be, and he actually gave the correct answer on this. He stumbled onto the truth and was on Newsmax talking about it. This is why, spoken by one of the worst guys you know, this is why we don't do this. This is why it's not legal. He gives the accurate constitutional answer about this.
The fact that U.S. officials describe the individuals killed by the U.S. strike as narco-terrorists does not transform them into lawful military targets. The U.S. is not engaged in an armed conflict with Venezuela or Trinidad. The strike runs afoul to the right to life under international human rights law. So the president basically said that these guys are terrorists. You can kill terrorists. You can't, I guess, kill drug dealers just for dealing drugs, right?
Well, this is, brings up a question. So, we assume these people were bad people and drug dealers, but if they were caught off the coast of Miami, we would stop the boat. If they don't shoot at us, we don't shoot at them. They're confiscated, they're put in jail, and then they go through a trial to prove what they were doing. And if they have 20 pounds of cocaine or heroin or something on the boat, they'll be convicted. The reason we have trials, though, and we don't automatically assume guilt is, what if we make a mistake and they happen to be people fleeing Venezuela, the Venezuelan dictator? I think probably that, we had the facts correct. We got bad people here. But that's the reason, like off our coast, it isn't our policy just to blow people up. We don't blow up ships entering our waters unless they're, hell bent on attacking another ship, or unless they are resisting with gunfire. Right. We arrest people. So it is difficult, and it's hard because obviously they're bad people. So people are like, they want something bad to happen to them. But typically, even the worst people in our country, if we accuse somebody of a terrible crime, they still get a trial, basically. They get a lawyer, they get their day in court.
Yeah. But if we're at war, we blow up bad guys all the time. I think that's what they're saying. This is a war, and we do have. I mean, obviously, you know the numbers of how many people in this country die from illicit drugs that come in from Central and South America. A lot of them have fentanyl and other very dangerous ingredients in them. I mean, people drop dead all the time. I mean, they kill 100,000 people a year on a bad year. 100,000 Americans dying. That does kind of feel like a war.
It's also why in our country war is the exception. So when we have a war, it was intended that we would declare war, it'd be a big vote of our Congress. And then at that point in time, we say, if that enemy, if we are at war, let's say with Venezuela, then we say their ships are free to shoot them anywhere they are, anytime. And so we kill them off their coast, we kill them in their country, but we've declared war on them. It's a little harder here because this is a crime and this is a criminal syndicate. So look, once again, no love lost for the people who died that are trying to infiltrate our country with this filth. But at the same time, you have to realize it's not as simple as it may sound that, oh, let's just kill drug dealers, because sometimes you have to figure out who people are before you kill them. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Now, did you hear the reporter? The president says they're terrorists. You can kill terrorists. You can't just kill drug dealers. That will be brought here domestically. They will institute this. This is what I'm ready for. It's what I've been talking about. That's why last week or the week before, whenever it was said, when I think Stephen Miller said it, that the Democratic Party is a domestic extremist organization. They want to label us that. They want to get to a point where we are terrorists, and then they can treat us like they treated the 11 human beings on this boat, who we don't know if they were drug cartel members because they weren't offered due process. Even the worst people in our country, if we accuse somebody of a terrible crime, they still get a trial. For all of the leg humping that Republicans do to our founding fathers, the framers of our Constitution and our government, they sure don't like the ideas that they brought. Their Enlightenment ideas about due process about egalitarianism, equality, that we're all endowed by our creators with certain unalienable rights. I'm having a hard time talking today. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All of the jingoistic, patriotic nonsense that it's just virtue signaling from Republicans. They don't buy it, because if they did, they would behave differently. They would govern differently. They would act differently, comport themselves differently. Rand Paul, right for once. J.D. Vance racking up the L's as time goes on, and Donald Trump living up to every fascist wet dream he's ever had. I would love your opinion on this. Please comment below wherever you're watching the video. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily at dollemore.com.
The guy's just disgusting. I mean, he's not just, he has no talent. He's not liked. Obviously, he was fired for a reason.
Sleazy, disgusting, and smarmy. If you're one of my trolls, you might think that I'm self-describing. But I'm not. Last night on Hannity, Stephen Miller went on a jag about Stephen Colbert. And look, you cannot think Stephen Colbert is funny. You can have whatever opinion about Stephen Colbert, but smug or smarmy and sleazy and disgusting, they're not accurate descriptors for Stephen Colbert, who is a genuine, decent man, an absolute legendary talent. Which is another thing that Stephen Miller says in this clip, that he's not even talented and no one likes him, and that's why he got fired and it was justified, and all this other just abject projection on the part of Stephen Miller, who many would think is sleazy, disgusting, and indeed smarmy. Watch this clip, and then we're going to jump in a time machine. You and I, we're going to go back through from August last month and July, and then even deeper into the past of sleazy, disgusting, and smarmy Stephen Miller. First, though, here he is really just shitting on Stephen Colbert.
He's on top of it 24/7. I also said, look, Colbert's a slime ball. The guy's just disgusting. I mean, he's not just, he has no talent. He's not liked. Obviously, he was fired for a reason, but he's just a sleazy, disgusting, smarmy guy. And look, it takes a lot to make me really despise somebody, or maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But Colbert is really, he's a horrible person, Sean.
All of that is because Stephen Colbert criticizes the fascist president of the United States, Donald Trump. A man who has been, it's been ruled by a court of law that he sexually assaulted a woman. He's been charged or accused by more than 24 women of assaulting them sexually. We heard him on tape say, oh, yeah, when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything you want and grab them by the pussy, said Donald Trump. That's not disgusting or sleazy at all in the mind of Stephen Miller. And maybe that's because Stephen Miller is those adjectives. Here he is just a few weeks ago in August and I got some good ones, so stick around. If you've seen this, there's a timer above the clip, or in the clip, you can just scroll ahead. But here he is acting, whatever the opposite of sleazy, disgusting, and smarmy is. Here he is describing the 90-year-old smelly idiot hippies, stupid hippies or whatever, who are protesting. I guess I'm one of them, since I've been out in front of Union Station protesting the military occupation and invasion of the city. Here he is being real decent and loving and kind about people exercising their free speech in the city of Washington.
And the voices that you hear out there, those crazy communists, they have no roots. They have no connections to the city. They have no families they are raising in this city. They have no one that they are sending to school in this city. They have no jobs in this city. They have no connections to this community at all. But they're the ones who've been advocating for the 1%, the criminals, the killers, the rapists, the drug dealers. And I'm glad they're here today. Because me, Pete, and the Vice President are all going to leave here, and inspired by them, we're going to add thousands more resources to this city to get the criminals and the gang members out of here. We're going to dismantle those networks, and we're going to prove that a city can serve for the law-abiding citizens who live there. We are not going to let the communists destroy a great American city, let alone the nation's capital. And let's just also address one other thing. All these demonstrators that you've seen out here in recent days, all of these elderly white hippies, they're not part of this city and never have been. And by the way, most of the citizens who live in Washington, D.C. are black. This is not a city that has had any safety for its black citizens for generations. And President Trump is the one who is fixing that with the support of the Metropolitan Police Department, the support of the National Guard, and our federal law enforcement officers. So we're going to ignore these stupid white hippies that all need to go home and take a nap because they're all over 90 years old, and we're going to get back to the business of protecting the American people and the citizens of Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Stephen. A few questions.
Go home and take a nap, he says. These stupid white hippies all need to go home. Sleazy, disgusting, and oh yeah, definitely smarmy. Let's go back 1 month from that. Here's July, where he's talking about 13, 14, and 15-year-old children who are being abused on a daily basis because Democrats, the Democratic Party, trafficked them. Seems totally above board. Definitely not sleazy, disgusting, or smarmy.
We have example after example. We go to homes, 13, 14, 15-year-old children who are raped on a daily basis because the Biden administration, because the Democrat Party chose to traffic them into this country. So we will be unrelenting in our effort to free these kids.
Yeah, this is a huge story, and the Biden administration tried to push them out of these holding facilities at the border and into the arms of people who were picking them up. There were some cases where one person picked up 150 children.
And look, you might be saying to yourself when you watch this, yeah, but he's just starting to act like this because he's so frustrated. I don't think people are doing that. It's a rhetorical device to get me to the next clip. I invented my own segue. Here he is in 2017. You might remember this moment where he's in the White House press briefing room. Donald Trump has just become president of the United States. We're virtually at the same moment right now that we were then. That much time had passed into Donald Trump's first term that has passed in his second now. And he's arguing with Jim Acosta about the norms of our country and what our values are relative to immigration. Remember, this was Donald Trump's first, the hard-on he had about brown people, the Muslim ban, and all of the absolutely anti-American ideals that were being pressed upon us. And Jim Acosta is like, look, the poem at the base of the Statue of Liberty give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. And Stephen Miller really goes at it about as sleazy, disgusting, and smarmily as one can. Watch this, and then we'll go all the way back to high school for Stephen Miller.
Yes. What you're proposing, or what the president's proposing here, does not sound like it's in keeping with American tradition when it comes to immigration. The Statue of Liberty says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. It doesn't say anything about speaking English or being able to be a computer programmer. Aren't you trying to change what it means to be an immigrant coming into this country? If you're telling them you have to speak English, can't people learn how to speak English when they get here?
Well, first of all, right now, it's a requirement that to be naturalized, you have to speak English. So the notion that speaking English wouldn't be a part of our immigration systems would be actually very ahistorical. Secondly, I don't want to get off into a whole thing about history here, but the Statue of Liberty is a symbol of liberty enlightening the world. It's a symbol of American liberty lighting the world. The poem that you're referring to that was added later is not actually part of the original Statue of Liberty, but more fundamentally, the history, but more fundamentally,
you're saying
the
that
history
does not represent.
I'm saying that the notion. I'm saying the notion that the. I'm saying the notion.
Stephen, I'm sorry.
No,
that sounds
Jim,
like,
let me ask you a question.
That sounds like some national park revisionism.
No, what I'm asking you is...
The Statue of Liberty
Jim,
has always
Jim,
been
let me ask you a question.
of hope to the world for people to send
Jim, do you believe...
people to this country,
Jim,
and they're not always going to speak English, Stephen.
Jim,
they're not
do you
always
believe...
going to be highly skilled. They're not always going to be...
Jim, I appreciate your speech. Jim, I appreciate your speech, so let's talk about this.
It was a modest...
Jim, let's talk about this. In 1970, when we let in 300,000 people a year, was that violating or not violating the Statue of Liberty law of the land? In the 1990s, when it was 500,000 a year, was it violating or not violating the Statue of Liberty law of the land?
Was it violating?
When it was 700,000 a year. No, tell me what years. Tell me what years. Tell me what years meet. Tell me what years meet Jim Acosta's definition of the Statue of Liberty poem, law of the land.
The Statue of Liberty poem, rule of law. Yeah. This is who he is, and this is who he has always been. Ever since high school, he has been someone who wanted to seek attention for the worst way, in the worst ways. There's a lot of people out there who want to be known or recognized, so they do good and decent things. They act charitably. They're just kind and benevolent, right? And that gets them attention. That gets them notoriety. Not Stephen Miller. Ever since he was a kid, since he was a child, he's been an abject piece of shit. Here he is. This is a little bit of a clip from a longer thing from the Washington Post where they profiled Stephen Miller. And in that profile, they covered his time in high school.
After our story appeared, we were contacted by a high school classmate of Stephen Miller who sent us a copy of a video that had been made about him by his classmates. The video was kind of like a documentary about Miller and the role he had played as an outspoken conservative at his high school.
Hi, I'm Stephen Miller. Some of you may or may not know who I am. We don't have time to get into that right now.
He was running for student government, so this was his speech.
I'm the only candidate up here who really stands out.
It's important to note that we don't have the whole speech. We called Santa Monica, the school district, and asked if they still had a copy of it. They said they've been looking for it, but they can't find it. So all we've got are these couple of short clips that have been included in this video that his classmates had made about him.
I will say and I will do things that no one else in their right mind would say or do.
You can sort of see that he's enjoying riling up the crowd. He's got a smile on his face at various points in time. But he makes this comment, and what he says is,
am I the only one who is sick and tired of being told to pick up my trash? And we have plenty of janitors who are paid to do it for us.
I don't know if he's advocating for being thrown out of school, but he is the trash that needs to be picked up by the janitors. This is who he's always been. And it's just, it is rich for someone who is sleazy, disgusting, and smarmy to make that accusation against someone who is absolutely under no metrics sleazy, disgusting, or smarmy. This is pattern and practice. This is standard operating procedure for Republicans, especially the ones who have who have put on a master class of how to be a projection artist, like Stephen Miller with his, I don't know what's going on with his little twitch. Maybe it's the last vestiges of decency that are escaping as he twitches out. I don't know.
God bless the First Lady. She, of course, is wiser than all of us. I am so inspired by that lady. God bless her.
The energy secretary is a guy named Chris Wright. And apparently, I don't want to be, there's no way this is going to end up being one of those videos where people are clicking off. He's leaking his obsequiousness. It's not enough to worship at the feet of the dear leader, Donald Trump. He now is just being oogie and gross about Melania Trump. In this clip that I'm getting ready to play that just happened a few hours ago on Fox News, they're talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and Chris Wright goes off on this jag about how Melania Trump, God bless the First Lady. She, of course, he says, is wiser than all of us. Melania Trump, oh my gosh, he says at the beginning of the clip. It's just all of the talk. Look, I make jokes about the emperors and who, great clothes or whatever that children's parable or fable tale. Yeah, Aesop, the fables, the children's fable, the tales, Hansel and Gretel, they always come with like a message. There's like what's the moral of the story, right? What's the takeaway? Except in this case, it's how to kiss the ass and worship at the throne of your cult leader, Donald Trump, and his, third, fourth, fifth? How many wives has he had? Decent, good and decent Christian man who runs on being a representative of the Christ. It's fine to have some marriages under your belt, but don't act like you're above reproach when you are who you are. Anyway, I've got it going off the rails here. Watch this from the Secretary of Energy of the United States of America talking about AI and then veering off into worship territory, saying that Melania Trump, of all people, is the wisest person among us all.
I want to show you, our viewers, a clip from Melania as she announces this presidential challenge.
The President's National Artificial Intelligence Challenge invites every student in America, from kindergarten to 12th grade, to unleash their imagination and showcase the spirit of American innovation. Our educators will guide and empower you through this process to build a brighter, stronger future for us all.
Your reaction?
Oh my gosh, look, I'm working every day on using AI to figure out how to cure cancer or launch fusion energy or understand dark matter. Our Defense Department's trying to figure out how to keep America safe. We're using different applications. God bless the First Lady. She, of course, is wiser than all of us and is realizing the real killer app of AI may be to lift up the education of children across our country, no matter where they come from, to expand their life opportunities and bring them new possibilities. She's inspiring everyone to come together across the cabinet, across the industry, to focus on what's America's biggest challenge: give our kids better educations, better tools, more optimism, so they can pursue the American dream. I am so inspired by that lady. God bless her.
Well, she's certainly taking on something that is going to change our world forever. So we thank you for joining us today. Thanks for your insight.
I'm going to connect you with our new NASA administrator, Rachel. Great to see you.
Good seeing you too.
Look, Chris, Secretary, Mr. Secretary, bring it in. Bring it in. She's not going to fuck you, dude. And wiser than all of us? No, she is not. I assure you, she is not. She might be wiser than you, dipshit, but she's not wiser than the rest of us. And I've got a couple of examples of Melania wisdom. And of course, they would think she's super, super wise because of her racism and her past and her she made a great decision to rise to power and influence and notoriety by shacking up with Donald Trump, a rich guy. Fantastic. But let me tell you about what her level of wisdom is. Remember this moment when she was on a phone call that was released by her old best friend or whatever, where she's bitching about having to put up Christmas decorations in the White House? Remember the who gives a fuck about the Christmas? Remember this? Watch.
They say I'm complicit. I'm the same like him. I support him. I don't say enough. I don't do enough.
No.
Where I am, I'm working like my ass off. I know. That Christmas stuff that, who gives a about Christmas stuff and decoration, but I need to do it, right?
Yeah, but 100%. You have no choice.
And then I do it, and I say that I'm working on Christmas, planning for the Christmas, and they said, oh, what about the children that they were separated? Give me a break.
wisdom. Anybody, listen, if there had been a tape of Jill Biden talking to a friend where she says, who gives a fuck about the Christmas? Republicans would go apoplectic. They would lose their minds because she's disrespecting the birthday of Jesus. That's what they would do. But if it comes out of the mouth of the white racist lady, well, it's fine. No big deal at all. Who gives a fuck about the Christmas, right? And many of you might say, well, she's not racist. She's just Donald Trump's wife. But she was part of the entire operation to try to convince Americans of the lie and the conspiracy theory that Barack Obama was born in Kenya, the absolute nightmare period of this country when the first black president was attacked as not even eligible to be president. And she was there the entire time forwarding this idea.
But what is this with the birth certificate obsession? Did he ask to see yours when you met him?
I needed to put mine anyway, because if you want to become an American citizen, you need to put the birth certificate.
Right.
I have a birth certificate from Slovenia. And do you want to see President Obama birth certificate or not?
I've seen it.
It's not the birth certificate.
Well, it's a certificate of live birth,
Right,
which they give. But Melania, if he insists on what he's saying, then no one in Hawaii can ever run for president because they all get the same live birth certificate.
Well, but they need to have...
Midler is finished, for example.
They need to have, and in one way, it will be very easy if President Obama just show it, and because it's not only Donald who wants to see it, it's American people who voted for him and who didn't vote for him. They want to see that.
But it's on display in Chicago. We've seen it on the internet. We've seen it. It's not the same as yours, but it's a certificate of live birth.
Well, we feel it's different than birth certificate.
All right. Well, I think you should give it up at this point.
Well, it's not. It's not him that it's bringing up. It's the media all the time.
Yeah, it's the media, Melania. Listen to that wisdom. That wonderful wisdom. She's wiser. Look, I'm convinced. I hope you are too. I am very convinced Melania Trump is wiser than all of us. Thank you, Chris Wright, for bringing that to our attention. I was under the misapprehension that she was just a dipshit like Donald Trump. I mean, after all, you got to have something going on, something askew to be involved at that level of intimacy with Donald Trump. Anyway, what do you think? We have a cast of characters who surround Donald Trump at he's picked just the ones who know just where to put their tongue. Chris Wright's one of them, Pete Hegseth, all the rest of them just heaping weird, obsequious praise on the dear leader. Because he's so insecure, he's so much of a mental and physical weakling that he needs to be built up to feel good about himself. Him and his wife. It should be troubling in and of itself that we have a president of the United States who has a verdict against him, not one but two, of sex abuse. Look, we know that Donald Trump likes to use the DOJ as his personal law firm, and they are happy, they are beyond excited to serve in that role. That his personal defense attorney in cases is now at high levels of power in the Department of Justice in the United States. It's a bizarre situation. Unprecedented doesn't really get it done to explain how wildly inappropriate, and some have argued illegal, all of this is, right? But it's not just the Department of Justice. He's not just trying to use the Department of Justice as his personal arm to benefit himself. It's also the United States Supreme Court, who largely, at a margin of about 6-3, as I bite the inside of my cheek, they're in for it too. He's now asking them, and this is another thing. This is where we are in this country, that Donald Trump, a man, let me just read this headline from Axios. Prepare, if you're drinking something, stop. If you're standing, sit. This is the kind of thing that just invokes the gag reflex. from Axios, Trump to ask Supreme Court of the United States to reverse E. Jean Carroll's sex abuse verdict. One, it should be troubling in and of itself that we have a president of the United States who has a verdict against him, not one but two, of sex abuse, abusing a woman in a shopping mall in his past. It's a verdict. There was a judgment rendered in this case. The other thing is that he's asking the Supreme Court to overturn that verdict. 3 of those members he's appointed personally. They would have to, you would think, recuse themselves from this case, being that he appointed them, and then now they're rewarding him. Seems like a quid pro quo, right? If you're normal and you understand ethics, even at the basis level, you could be in elementary school and still say, oh, that seems like a problem. Here's a little bit from the article from Axios. President Trump is expected to ask the Supreme Court to reverse the $5 million verdict in a civil suit where he was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation of writer E. Jean Carroll. Trump has continuously fought the verdict, claiming that several lawsuits against him are politically motivated, with mixed success in court. The most success that Donald Trump has had relative to scuttling lawsuits and legal action against him is becoming president of the United States again, and then having his personal attorneys at the DOJ do away with those lawsuits. And now he wants to treat the Supreme Court the same exact way. However, it should be known, I think everyone knows, that the Supreme Court, the judiciary of this country, is a co-equal branch of government. They are not subservient to the wills of this fascist dipshit, Donald Trump. President Trump intends to seek review by this court of significant issues arising from the Second Circuit's erroneous decision, the president's counsel wrote in an application to the nation's highest court. The petition asked the court to grant the president an extension until November 10th to formally ask for this case to be heard. You know, it's interesting, this $5 million verdict that they're talking about. Couldn't he just use some of the money that was paid to him by CBS and ABC, some of the $32 million that they bent the knee and paid him in a settlement? Couldn't he just use some of that? He's not rich enough. He needs to recoup that $5 million. Or is this about a legacy play here? That's a question I would love to know, what everybody's thinking about. In the filing, Trump's lawyers noted that the president has not previously asked for an extension and that the legal team needs more time due to conflicts with other cases involving the president. Weird to have a president who's wrapped up in so many cases. Well, we don't want it to conflict with all the other nonsense that we have going on. All of the other lawsuits we've brought against the media, attacking their freedom of speech, using the power and the weight and the heft and the width and the breadth of the United States government to bring those cases. Yeah. And then finally, quote, we do not believe that President Trump will be able to present any legal issues in the Carroll case that merit review by the United States Supreme Court, Carroll's attorney, Roberta Kaplan, told Axios in an emailed statement. I don't know how far we must slide into the abyss as a country for people to start waking. I know that there is a wide swath of America who is not happy about where things are, where we currently stand as a country, that the reputation of the United States was precarious at best before, because of all the things we've done with foreign relations and our military and all of that. But we might be too far gone now. It might be a lost cause that we are just done. I know that when I travel internationally and I talk to people in foreign countries, their question, especially when they find out what I do, is what happened? Because a lot of people think that the United States is so chock full of MAGA people, of Trump supporters, that there's only a few of us who resist, only a few of us who aren't in agreement with the policies of Donald Trump and this country. And that just couldn't be further from the truth. The problem lies in voter participation rates. The problem lies in people who are, because of our system, because of capitalism being predatory, people are too busy trying to scratch out a living and survive to pay attention to important news. They've been convinced that their vote does not matter. And then we've got a whole other element of the fringe political elements of our country who battle against the unfortunate binary system of our voting. That in November, it was Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. Those were the choices. And too many people either bowed out because I'm not going to vote for Kamala, and then allowed Donald Trump the opportunity to swoop in and fundamentally change an already broken country. Rough stuff going forward. And I think it's on all of us to be more involved. Maybe not to the level that I am with having my eyes propped open with toothpicks like it's the Clockwork Orange scene or something, constantly into the news, having to really take a weekend every month or so to just completely check out. Don't do that to yourself, but get involved, be involved, stay involved. Convince those around you of what is happening. Inform them. Be that friend who's talking about the news to your acquaintances, your coworkers, your friends, your family, your neighbors. It's important. We're losing our country, and I don't want to say it's too late because I'm at my core an optimist. It might be too late, and we're only 9 months in to this shitscape. What do you think? Communicate with me in the comments. Let's talk about it there. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily at dollemore.com. I am glad to be back in my home studio, not on the road, doing this from a hotel room. While I can do it, it's operable. It's not ideal, as you can imagine. Anyway, thank you for spending some time with me today. I'll see you tomorrow. Be genuine. Take care of one another.